Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at a company that's making a pretty wild pivot. AirNet Technology Inc. ANTE for short. They're jumping out of the in-flight entertainment business in China and diving headfirst into Bitcoin mining. Is this a genius move or a recipe for disaster? We're going to try to figure that out. And as always, we want to hear your thoughts down in the comments. We've got company reports, financial analyses, news articles, all that good stuff. So yeah, buckle up. It's going to be a fascinating ride.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy shift, right? I mean, going from keeping passengers entertained on a plane to dealing with the world of cryptocurrency, that's a big leap.
That's what caught our attention too. So to give everyone some background, ANTE used to be called Air Media Group, and they were a big deal in air travel advertising in China. At one point, they even claimed to have the biggest digital media network in that whole sector.
Right.
But, as they say, all good things must come to an end.
Yeah, and in Ante's case, it seems like that end was driven by some pretty serious revenue declines. The market for in-flight entertainment has actually been growing, especially with all the streaming services and stuff. But Ante, they seem to be falling behind their competitors.
Exactly. So their core business is shrinking, and they've decided to go all in on Bitcoin mining, specifically in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, Kazakhstan. You might be wondering why Kazakhstan. Well, for one thing, they've got really cheap electricity, which is super important for those power-hungry mining operations. And they've also teamed up with a specialist firm called LLP STH Core to help them navigate this whole new world.
Because that's the what, but what about the who? Is this the right team to pull off such a huge change? We know Mr. Herman Manguel has been the chairman and CEO for a while now, which, could be a sign of stability.
That's true. But there's been a lot of turnover in other senior positions.
Yeah.
CEOs and directors have been coming and going like it's a revolving door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, is there some kind of internal chaos?
Yeah.
Or maybe just a lack of a clear strategy?
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag. Investors and even employees can get spooked by that kind of instability.
Absolutely. So what do you think? Does Mr. Guo and his team have what it takes to lead ANTE through this? Let us know in the comments.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's look at ANTE's financial health. First up, their market cap is currently sitting somewhere between $9 and $23 million. This puts them squarely in the category of a microcap stock.
And for those who aren't familiar with that term, a microcap company is basically a small company with a low market value. And those microcap stocks, they can be pretty volatile. They can shoot up in value really fast, but they can also crash just as quickly. So that's something to keep in mind.
Right, and another important metric is the price-to-earnings ratio, or PE ratio for short. It's a way to see how much investors are willing to pay for each dollar of a company's earnings. Now, with ANTE, things get a little messy here. Some reports are showing a positive PE, which would suggest they're profitable, but others are showing losses, which paints a very different picture.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing, isn't it? But this kind of inconsistency actually makes sense when you consider that they're in this weird in-between phase. They're trying to switch from one business model to another. So those traditional metrics might not be so reliable right now.
You're exactly right. But what is crystal clear is their revenue growth trend. And it's been negative for several years. They've been making less money each year.
Right, so the big question is, can Bitcoin mining be their savior? Or are they jumping from the frying pan into the fire? We're going to dig into that more in a bit. But first, we want to hear from you. What are your first impressions of ANTE and their big Bitcoin move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
All right, so we've seen that ANTE's core business is struggling, and their leadership situation is a little bit, well, let's just say it's uncertain. But the big question is, how are investors reacting to all of this, especially that Bitcoin announcement?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's investor sentiment that really drives a company's stock price. And in ANTE's case, the market reaction has been, well, a little bit all over the place.
Yeah. Right after the Bitcoin news came out, their stock price jumped up. It was almost like people just heard Bitcoin and assumed it was going to be a gold mine. But if you zoom out and look at their performance over the past year, it's not so pretty.
Yeah, the long-term trend is definitely not in their favor.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is a classic case of speculation. Investors are betting on ANTE's potential in the Bitcoin mining industry. But there's a lot of uncertainty mixed in there.
And to make things even more uncertain, there's not a lot of clear opinions from analysts. Some are kind of optimistic but cautious, while others are worried that the company might be overvalued. Nobody seems to have a crystal ball to predict ANTE's future.
So to everyone listening, are you feeling that fear of missing out on a potential gold rush? Or are you skeptical about ANTE's ability to pull this off? Let us know in the comments.
Now, to understand who's driving all this market sentiment, we need to look at ANTE's ownership structure. And this is where things get interesting. Both institutional and insider ownership are surprisingly low.
Yeah, we're talking about just 2% institutional ownership and around 1.4% insider ownership. That's way lower than what you'd normally see in a public company.
Right. It suggests that a big chunk of ANTE's stock is being held by individual investors, and they tend to be more reactive to news and hype. Remember how we talked about how volatile this stock can be?
Exactly. Imagine a bunch of individual investors all reacting emotionally to every little headline and rumor. That could create some serious swings in the stock price.
For sure, and this low insider ownership also raises some questions about corporate governance. If the people running the company don't have much skin in the game, are they really motivated to act in the best interests of all the shareholders? It's definitely something to think about.
No doubt. So let's do a quick SWOT analysis to some of what we've learned so far. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a good way to get a clear picture of where ANTE stands.
Okay, so strengths. They're getting into the Bitcoin mining industry, which is booming right now, and they've got that partnership with a specialist firm in Kazakhstan, where electricity costs are low.
But on the flip side, their weaknesses are pretty significant. Their main business is declining, their finances are shaky, and their leadership situation is, well, a bit up in the air.
True. But when it comes to opportunities, the potential for growth in Bitcoin mining is huge. If they can actually make this plan work, there's a chance for some big returns.
However, the threats are pretty big, too. The Bitcoin market is known for being volatile. They've got tough competition from established players, and the regulations in Kazakhstan could change at any time.
Oh, and don't forget that agreement for their Bitcoin mining farm. It's not binding. The whole thing could fall apart.
It's a lot to consider. So to everyone listening, which of these risks worries you the most? The ups and downs of Bitcoin, the fierce competition, the regulatory uncertainty, or the fact that the whole deal could just collapse? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get to the million-dollar question. Should you buy ANTE stock?
Well, like with any investment, there's no easy answer. But based on what we've talked about today, it's clear that ANTE is a high-risk, high-reward kind of situation.
Yeah, their past performance isn't exactly inspiring. But the potential of Bitcoin mining is definitely there. It really comes down to your personal risk tolerance and investment goals.
If you're comfortable with big risks and potentially big rewards, and you believe in the future of Bitcoin, then ANTE might be worth a look. But if you're looking for a safe and steady investment, this is probably not the one for you.
And there's one more crucial piece of information to think about. Remember that cliffhanger we left you with earlier? Well, it all comes down to the technology ANTE is using for their mining operation.
They've invested heavily in Bitmain Antminer S19j Pro machines. Now, these were once considered top of the line, but technology in this industry moves at lightning speed.
It's like buying a fleet of brand new cars and then finding out that everyone else is already driving flying cars. You'd be at a serious disadvantage, right?
Exactly, and that's the situation ANTE is facing. Newer mining machines are not only faster at mining Bitcoin, they're also more energy efficient, which means ANTE could end up paying more to operate their mines than their competitors.
And in an industry where profit margins are already thin, that could be a recipe for disaster. So while their choice of hardware might not be a deal breaker on its own, it's definitely a red flag that needs to be considered carefully.
So imagine you're advising ANTE's leadership. What would you tell them to focus on to improve their chances of success? Should they just go for it and invest in newer, more efficient mining hardware? Or maybe try to get even cheaper electricity rates to balance out those higher operating costs? Or maybe they should focus on building a stronger brand in the crypto community to attract more investors and partners.
It's a complicated situation with no easy solutions. But it's clear that ANTE needs to be strategic, adaptable, and maybe a little bit lucky. To make this whole Bitcoin thing work, we've covered a lot of ground today. From their shaky past in the air travel media business to their big leap into Bitcoin mining, we looked at their finances, their leadership, and the risks involved.
And we also highlighted the potential rewards if they manage to pull it off. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to invest in ANTE is up to you.
But remember, always do your own research and think about your own risk tolerance and investment goals. And don't forget to check out the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel for more in-depth analysis and insights into the world of finance and investing.
And please remember that all the information we've shared today is based on research using artificial intelligence and should not be considered financial advice.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights into ANTE and their bold move into Bitcoin mining.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think ANTE is a hidden gem or a risky gamble? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future episodes. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and happy investing.